All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Gonna kick this week off with another business video this time around. And in a previous video, I'll make sure to put it at the top of the screen. But in the previous video, I went over the concept of bleeding money and what does it mean to bleed money, and can huge companies bleed money as well, on top of like just regular everyday people. But a lot of people actually don't know what it means to bleed money. So I covered that in a previous video, and in this video, we're gonna build on that a little bit more. So the thing about business, what I'm learning is companies not only can they bleed money, and we kind of know this because of the rise of inflation and certain things like that. When companies start to bleed money, they know that they'll do things such as increase the prices of their products and services, which therefore passes on their bleeding to us. The thing is, we don't know that that's the case, and that's only part of the whole equation. So this video, I'm going to go deeper into the concept of bleeding money, and we'll pick up more on that whole like cycle and some of the things that companies do that passes on their financial bleeding onto us, but also because of how we react to it, how it kind of reinforces their decision in the first place, and it becomes this cycle. And I wanted to clear this up because I have a couple other videos that I'm going to work on, or that I've worked on, that are only going to, dig deeper into this concept, but we're going to use or go over like specific examples, like news that's coming out of companies, cutting costs and stuff like that. So this might be the last time I cover this as far as just the concept of bleeding money in itself, but let's go ahead and dive right in and we'll go forward from there. So, as you all know, inflation has been the main topic of discussion for the last handful of years because mainly, if you want to say mainly COVID, but also other things such as the migrant crisis that a lot of people have been talking about. I just saw a news article a day or two ago about migrants up in New York are now starting to get $20,000 each, whereas we natives and citizens, that's clearly not happening. Then you have the giant lump sum of money that the country gave to, I believe it was Israel, when it came to the Israel Hamas conflict that's still very much going on, and a bunch of other things. And it seems like money is being mismanaged in such a way that is influencing the current economic state of the country, which is why a lot of people see things going very downhill very quickly, and it's worrying a lot of people. But like I said, inflation is only part of the process when it comes to the concept of bleeding money, not only from companies, but we can even talk about the government at this point. And it's only part of the process that passes on their bleeding to us. So let's go ahead and get started in looking at that. So the first thing we want to talk about is that companies pass on their financial bleeding to the public through multiple methods. When they do this, like I said, it creates a loop or cycle that just makes things harder for, the everyday consumer, for the everyday American citizen, and it ultimately hits the economy at large. So some of these things that companies use to pass on their bleeding to us, we have the first one, which is the most obvious, is price increases. And like I said, this is the most common sense item because this is when companies, they'll drastically or incrementally increase the cost or the prices of the products and services that they offer to the general public. And it's one of those things that you can see, maybe not literally every day, if not every day, but definitely something you can see like weekly or every 2 weeks, where you just bought some type of bread one week, then you go back the next week, it's maybe a few cents to a dollar higher, you go back the week after that, and the cycle repeats. So that's the one that's probably most in our face when it comes to the effects, of the companies or the country's choices that they make with their money that ends up hitting our money. The second one is also common sense, but this, in my opinion, can, if not just does, have a more direct effect on us as consumers, which is cutting costs. Now, increasing prices isn't, you know, I say it's an external measure. When I say cutting prices are an external measure, I mean it mainly affects us as the everyday consumers. If increasing prices is what I would consider an external measure, meaning it mainly affects people or organizations outside of a particular company, then I would consider cutting costs an internal measure in relation to that company. So, what I mean by that, and we'll dive more into this in future videos, when I say it like that, pretty much everything is a bill to a business. That's why everything needs to be justified. Some companies are more tight with it than others, but even you as an employee to your company, you're a bill to the business. So when you're trying to, interview and land a job, you are going to be a bill to that business, but the business needs you. So you're trying to justify why you're a bill worth having. So when it comes to cutting costs, this may include things such as reducing benefits, office spaces, any maintenance that pertains to the workspace, the cleanliness and the functionality of it, equipment that you use, you and your coworkers. These are all bills in the eyes of the business, and you have to keep in mind that that means you can be cut at any point in time when the company simply does not need you for a particular project or set of work anymore, or they're coming across financial hardship, and to save themselves, they need to get rid of some of their internal people. The third one I wanted to touch on is reducing investments in infrastructure. And this one, I think it kind of goes over our head. I don't know too many people that have talked about this in my life, but it's something that if it happens long enough, or if you reside in a particular area that already doesn't have much infrastructure to bring economic wealth and monetary gain to a particular section, and then you lose the little bit of infrastructure you have, then it sticks out more. But generally speaking, I think this is something that goes over a lot of our heads. So we kind of talked about this in a previous video as well, when I discussed the difference between architecture and infrastructure. And infrastructure refers to the individual components that allows a society to grow and be prosperous economically, versus architecture refers to the way that those pieces are laid out and designed. This also goes for tech work, whether you're in cloud computing, whether you are designing, engineering, or architecting a local area network or a wide area network. These concepts, I want to say, are universal. It applies to different things. We're just talking more in the economic front right now. And let's use this example that I came up with. So say if banks stop installing ATMs or opening new branches, hospitals stop opening new buildings and stop expanding, they don't even open small clinics, community/economic centers shut down, and none of these things are being replaced in your local area, especially again, if your area was already kind of deprived of those things in the first place, then anywhere from your local economy to as big as the national economy is going to start to decline along with it. So the second part is where the actual cycle comes in that I kept referring to. So in response to increased prices to consumers, we, the consumers, are likely to tighten up our spending. We can't buy certain, just leisures and things, whether luxury items, whether trips, even when birthdays and holidays roll around. You may have been able to give yourself or give your family, your children, extended family, whatever they needed or wanted at that time. Or maybe if you never knew what someone wanted, you would just give them straight cash, And of course, if you were smart, you budget accordingly. But whatever money you had that you could put to use, you can go ahead and do whatever you want with it, have a good time. But in response to, plane tickets going up, food going up, medicine going up, especially when people are misusing certain types of medicine, if you know what I mean, then it makes it so that we instinctually will want to tighten up on our wallets. And that's natural for us, and it's smart on your part as an individual. But it's sad to say there's actually kind of a two-pronged effect that has that doesn't work in our favor. Because as a result of us doing that, the companies don't get back the money that they spent to put out certain products and to develop certain services in the first place, which leads to them increasing the prices of those things more and more over time. So the way that I see it is, you have a company that provides a product or service. They spend money to get that product made, whether it's a computer, a microphone, a phone, a laptop, a tablet, clothes, different foods and things. Companies have to spend money to get that stuff put out. There's a whole, that's why it's supply chain. There's a whole process where it starts in one place and ends off in another, and you got a bunch of just hands in between, and all of those different hands cost money. The whole thing is they're supposed to aim to increase prices just enough to make it attractive to us, but also for them to get their money back and then some, and that's how businesses grow. You have companies spending money to put out products that aren't being bought, which means they're not getting back the money that they initially invested into their products in the first place. But then on top of that, because they increase prices because of that happening, now we start tightening up on our wallets, and they're still losing money because they still have to put out fresh food. They still have to put out more products in hopes of getting their money back. But now it's costing them even more, which means it's going to cost us even more, which means we're going to tighten up on our money even more, which means they're going to jack up their prices even more. And now you're stuck in this vicious loop where everyone is either penny pinching or constantly increasing their prices to get back money that they lost from 2 or 3 different places at least. And naturally, if this happens long enough, over a long enough period of time, this will lead to something called an economic slowdown, or what, as we all know, is a recession. And we won't get too deep into the economic terms of it all, but the economy is stimulated by consumer purchases. The economy is stimulated by us buying stuff, by us being consumers, at least by being in a capitalistic society. So the more we buy, the more money is flooded back into the economy, the more money that rotates and spins around in said economy, the more the economy grows, and the more infrastructure, hospitals, schools, bridges, medical centers, economic community centers, things like that can, just start to pop up. Grocery stores. I lived in Dallas for over 4 years. I just moved back to the East Coast a couple months ago. This whole area that I live in is much different from when I left, mainly because they made a shopping center that's like 2 minutes away from my house that was not there a few years ago. And, now it's drawing a lot of traffic. The area that I'm in, that was, on the emptier side before, now we got a few luxury apartment complexes popping up on this side. You got some more clinics popping up, all this stuff, man. Like, this is what allows, either from a small town to a big city, a metro area, and an overall country to thrive. Because now there's more traffic here too. Unfortunately, it wasn't that bad before. It had little moments, but now it's like, it's getting packed over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, traffic, kind of bumper to bumper traffic, especially naturally when people are getting off work, is starting to become normal in this area. Something that I didn't think would happen. But that's what it means for the economy, even on the local level, to be stimulated enough to grow, and you start seeing other things pop up. The thing is, without this growth, companies start to feel even more pressure than before. So this can lead to companies being acquired or bought out. They get purchased by larger organizations that usually are in the same market. But even if they're not in the same market, if a company is about to go under and someone else, another company, or even an individual has the type of money where it's like, hey, I'll go ahead and buy you right here and now, they'll let it happen. They have no choice. It's either that or the company goes bankrupt. The staff is probably completely let go. Versus if there's an acquisition, there's probably potential for some of that staff to be saved, even if some people get cut. And again, this all contributes to that cycle that is very hard for us to break. So as far as my final thoughts, again, I've never been into politics growing up because it was always boring. But now I'm at a point where, and I think like a lot of people, we're at a point where we're starting to pay attention to this because we are now the, adults, mid, late 20s, 30s, and up that, this stuff starts to hit us on a regular, everyday basis. So, it's more than just knowing the term recession because everyone knew what recession meant. But now we're starting to learn and pay attention to certain economic terms or terms that even outside of politics, like the videos I made about what my car taught me, I'm going over economic terms in those videos that I had to pay attention to because it was my first time going through that process. And I never had to pay attention to those type of things before. So we're finally at a point where, we're learning about these things that are affecting all around life, but especially when it comes to our paychecks, taxes, and whatnot. So for this video, I just decided to pull the layers back a bit and share what I learned again through those car videos, going over terms in some different videos, and also just diving deeper into this concept about this cycle that, maybe some people also aren't aware of this because I think generally people know that when companies start to increase prices, we start to hold on to our money. But there's a couple other factors that were part of that process, as well as, the whole infrastructure versus architecture thing that I wanted to bring back up to hopefully seal that deal. So hopefully that was all helpful. And now you have a better idea on how companies, through the means of cutting costs, increasing prices and stuff like that. And there's more to that list. You can look it up. There are various methods that they use to pass on their financial bleeding to us. So just wanted to go ahead and let y'all know what I learned there. And from here, we'll dive more into some of the actual real world situations that are happening when it comes to businesses taking hits and labor force reductions and stuff like that, because that's all going to be based pretty much off of this. So I'll go ahead and leave this video off here, guys. If you have any feedback or just general comments you want to share with me, go ahead and share that with me in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say and grow better with this type of information over time. Because like I said, depending on your age, you were probably young enough recently to where you didn't have to pay too much attention to this aside from just personal interest. And now we all have to start paying attention to this if you aren't already. So I'll go ahead and leave it there, guys. Appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next one.